Okay, this one was very simple and straightforward. Write down the equation of the axis of symmetry of f of x. So for this one, once they say write down, in most cases, you don't have to calculate anything. You just have to write down, right? So when they say write down the equation of the axis of symmetry of f of x, they basically want the value of x at the turning point. They want the value of x at the turning point. So is there any way that they give us the the x? No, they didn't give us any value of the turning point there, right? But when you know that you have, okay, wait, isn't there statement right there? It's fine. But when you have point point E and F, point E and F, point E and F, they both have the same Y value, right? They have the same Y value, which means they are actually in the same straight line. They're actually in the same straight line. So in order to find the value of the axis of symmetry, you can basically come and say 7.1 x is equal to, you are adding the value of x of point E and the value of x of point F. So which means you're going to say x at E plus x at F, all divided by 2, right? So this more like 0 plus 1 over 2. And the answer that you are going to get, it is 1 over 2. That is the value of the axis of symmetry. So this is basically the value of the turning point here. It is 1 over 2. Then 7.2. But for which value of x is f of x decreasing? Now I told you, when you have a straight line, and when you have a straight line or when you have a parabola, you can use the gradient of a straight line to find where it is increasing or decreasing. But the simple method, you can just use the graph. You can just read the graph. So how to read the graph? You read the graph from left to right. You read the graph from left to right. This is what you must always bear in mind. So if you are reading your graph there, let me zoom in again there. So when you are reading your graph, you're going to read your graph from this point to this point, because I move from left to right, right? So let's see. When the graph is increasing, this is where you will be going upwards in your graph. Okay, look at this. If maybe I have a car or a box, I'm pushing a box here. I'm pushing my box here, there and there and there. My box is going upwards up to the turning point, right? After scrolling on the turning point, or the turning point there, my box now will be going downwards. My box is now going downwards, 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 which means my graph is increasing from negative infinity. Actually, the graph is not ending, it is going up to infinity. The values of x from negative infinity up to the turning point, my graph was increasing. I was going upwards, you see. Then from the turning point, moving to the positive infinity or to the positive values, my graph is decreasing, it is going downwards. But what if you are in a scenario whereby your graph is drawn like this? Your graph now is drawn like this. Again, you're going to put your box here. You read the graph from left to right. You're going to put your box here, right? Then your box is going downwards. It is going to move downwards up to the turning point. Then from the turning point, your box now is moving upwards, right? So which means if the turning point here, the value of x and the turning point, let's say that point there, this point, it is 0 and -1, which means your graph is decreasing from negative infinity up to that point. That means for decreasing, it is when your x values are less than 0 for decreasing. And any value that exists on the graph, it is negative. A negative number is less than 0. Then for increase, this where now your graph will be in the positive x axis. In the positive x axis. This way x now is greater than 0. Any value of x that exists on the graph, it is greater than 0, 2, 6, and so on and so on. So, but let's come back to our graph and respond in our graph. I'm not going to do the tangent method. It's one and the same thing. So when you can just do it on your own tangent method. So then, for which values of x is f of x decreasing? F of x is decreasing on this part from the turning point, moving that side, right? And that is when your x value is greater than 1 over 2, because a graph increases and decreases from the turning point, which means the turning point, it is a point that determines increasing and decreasing of a graph. Just note that, bear that in mind every time. Never forget that. So which means 7.2. And that is actually one of the reasons why they said calculate the axis of symmetry in 7.1, 7.2. So this is when x is greater than 1 over 2. Right. So if you have any confusion, don't be afraid to ask. I don't bite. 7.3. Now they said calculate the average gradient between point D and E. They want the average gradient between point D and E. D and E. All right. D and E. That one. And so far, now I know that the gradient that I must get, it should be a positive gradient. Why? Because if a line is lying like this has a positive gradient. If a line is lying like this, it has a negative gradient. So sometimes in mathematics, getting wrong answers, it depends on how you think and how you see things. You don't it should not just end in calculating gradient. You must understand what gradient actually means, right? But today we are not interested in that because I think we only have an hour. By 10 we're done. Then all right. So we are going to say m of d e is equal to y e minus yd, and then x e minus x d. The reason why I'm using d and e is because I don't want to confuse myself. Because remember, if you are using uh, y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1, if you are using point f and you say y1 is equal to 6, x2 no sorry, x1 must be equal to 1. So which means it's more like this, x1 x2. So most of the learners, they tend to confuse this. So what I prefer, it is just using the letters so that I can know, or in y2 I'm going to substitute which point, and then in y2 in x2 I'm going to substitute the other point, and so on and so on. Then this is going to be for point E. I have 6 minus, what about point D? 4, right? Then the x value at point E, it is 0. And then the x value at point D, it is -1. So -1 there. And this is actually going to be 2 over 1, I think, because 6 minus 4 is, yeah. So your gradient is actually 2. And if you look at this, my gradient is a positive value. Just as I said, by just looking at the average gradient that they wanted, I was able to make conclusion or what type of answer should I get. Then 7.4, they said um, determine the equation of G. Determine the equation of G. G is our straight line, right? And then, okay, wait. Let me clean my diagram. Mm, so for G, I'm looking for the equation of G. You know the G has an equation, G of x is equal to mx plus q, right? Mx plus q, right there. Then what I can do, I can first find the gradient. That's what I can do first. Because if I find the gradient, I can find the value of q, which is the y-intercept, by substituting just any point right there. Okay, so you're going to say m. How can you find the gradient of G? You can use point F and point D because they are on your straight line. You're going to use F and D. They are on the straight line. So I'm going to say DF is equal to YF minus YD over XF minus XD right there. This is equal to, what is YF? It is 6 YD minus 4 over 1 minus into -1. And that is eventually 1 now, because -1 times -1, it is 1. So you're going to have 2 over 2, which is actually 1. So now the gradient of G is 1. Now you have a gradient. Okay. Now you have a gradient. What do you do next? What you do next, you just go and take any other point. You can take any other point, doesn't matter. As long as you take one point. If you are using F, be consistent with using F. If you are using D, be consistent with using D, point D. So you are going to have, let me use F because it doesn't have negatives. I hate negatives. When something is negative, I hate it. That's why if someone is negative, I hate the person. 6 is equal to 1 into 1 plus q, right? Then which means this is actually equal to 1. Then which means your q is going to be 6. When I transpose 1, it's going to be negative, and which means it's going to be 6 minus 1. That is your q. Your q is going to be 5. Then your equation, because now you have q and the gradient, you can just go to your equation. G of x is equal to x, because that just 1, you don't have to write it, plus 5. And this is the equation. You are good from there. So from so far, I think we're still fine so far in this point. So okay, give me just 5 seconds. I want to check something. Oh, oh, okay, it's fine. So someone is asking here. I said I hate negative people. The person said, if do I love HIV positive people? I don't know what to respond. By the way, let's not involve this in our lesson. Some learners will need this recording. So when I talk about HIV, I'm being out of the topic. Okay, I'm going to erase everything here. Then we move forward. So far, I hope we're still fine. I hope we're still fine. So far, gone, 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 and gone, and gone, and gone. All right, then there is 7.5, right? They said show that show that f of x is equal to negative x squared plus x plus 6. Now I just want to hear from you guys. Is there anyone who was able to show this? Is there anyone of you who was able to show what they wanted? You can just raise up your hand. No one. Serious? Okay, it's fine. Okay, so they want you to show that they want you to arrive here. F of x is equal to negative x
Eh,
squared. Yes,
I can't see your screen.
so that
Yes.
maybe it's your network. Are you all able to see my screen beside here? Others are able to see the screen. Maybe it's your network. Yeah, you're struggling, shame. You're going through a lot. But either way, you'll get the recording. Don't worry. Don't worry. And this one won't be long. Mm, okay. They want you to show this answer or show them how you arrived at the answer, right? Then, first of all, now I'm confident and very sure that all of you must be able to see that C. Oh, wait, maybe I'm being too fast. The general equation that you have here is f of x is equal to um ax squared plus bx plus c, right? But I'm very sure that you guys can see that c is equal to 6. Uh, some of you, when we were doing introduction to functions, I showed you that C, it represents the y-intercept of your graph. And the y-intercept of the parabola, it is 6 there. That is point E, which is 0 and 6. And that 6 is your y-intercept, right? Then what is left is to find the rest of the variables in order to get. Uh, others are not able to join. I don't know why. Okay, so when we were learning last week, I think I gave you two formulas or two two formulas. Yes, the first formula was y is equal to a into x minus x1 close brackets x minus x2. The second one was y is equal to a into x minus p squared plus q, right? Then I give you two statements. I said you use the second formula when you are given a turning point and an extra point. And then P and Q are the values of X and Y in the turning point respectively. So which means at the turning point, you have P and Q. Then I said you use the first formula when you are given the x-intercepts and one extra point. That is what I give you. You use the first formula, this one, when you are given x-intercepts or two x-intercepts and one extra point. So in this case, the problem is we are not given the y-intercepts. We don't have them. Not the y-intercepts, the x-intercepts. We don't have them. So that's a problem to us. So if we have encountered such a problem, you have to be critical. You have to think now, how can you find uh, these answers? How can you work out this? Okay, well, look at this. Let me erase this. Mm, 7.5. 7.5 then. Okay, so which means now you're going to write your formula, which is f of x is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. Oh no, let me not use c, let me use 6 there, because I already know the value of c, which is 6, right? So now I can just use any other point. You can use any other point in this case, as long as it is on the parabola graph. You can just take any other point. So the point that I'm going to take the y-intercept. I'm going to just take the y-intercept here. So when I take the y-intercept, the problem is I have a 0 there. X is just 0, x is just 0. If I substitute a 0 here, this entire thing is going to be 0, this entire thing is going to be 0. I will have a problem. So let's use point F in order to avoid having A and B being 0. So if I have point F is 1 and 6, right? So in the value of y, I'm going to substitute 6 is equal to A into 1, right there, and then squared plus b into 1 plus 6, right? And eventually, this is actually, if I transpose 6 to the other side, I'm going to have 0 is equal to, what is a multiplied by 1 squared? It is just a plus 1 times b, that is b. So this is my equation 1, right? Then I'm going to use the other point, which is point D, right? I'm going to use point D now.
This is length.
Come on. Please mute your mic if you don't have a question. Then in point Y, in point D, so in point D, it is -1 and 4, right? So this way you have 4 is equal to A into -1 squared plus B into -1 plus 6, right? When you transpose 6 to the other side, you are going to have -2 is equal to, what is 1 times into -1 squared? It is actually A, or
And
A
then we
multiplied.
have another.
Okay, then that is minus B. 1 times -1 minus b. So this is equation 2. I hope we're still together here. We're still fine. Then, all right. I'm going to look for my values there. A and B. This is simultaneous equation. You know how to work out simultaneous. Then I'm going to maybe derivate equation 1. I'm going to say in equation 1, you're going to say A is equal to negative B. And you are transposing B to the other side. Then B becomes negative. This is equation 3. So now we're going to say equation 3, you are substituting it into equation 2, right? Then you are going to have negative 2 is equal to negative B minus B. And that is actually negative 2 is equal to negative 2B. When you divide both sides, your B is going to be equal to 1. That is your B. Then what about you're looking for A now. For A, you substitute B in equation 3. So A is actually going to be -1 right there. You see now, you have A being equal to -1, B then B will be equal to 1, and then C will be equal to 6. That is what you have. So your equation now, you have shown them that f of x is equal to -x squared plus x plus 6 right there. Then we are good. We are good. Then 7.6. Wait, give me a few seconds so that I can just take a picture for correction here. There's someone who needs this. Okay, then 7.6. They said calculate the length of SU. Calculate the length of SU. Length SU. What? So what you will see is that SU is actually the x-intercepts. It is the x-intercept of the straight line, x-intercept of a parabola. And I'm very sure that the point or the coordinates of S, it is a negative x and a 0. Then I'll show you how we work with the negative. Someone will ask me, do I subtract? Do I add? What? Okay, it's fine. We will see. Then I told you, S and U, they are coordinates of y of parabola and the straight line. So I'm going to say for S, that is where you're going to take your straight line. Can someone give me the equation of the straight line? Anyone with the equation of a straight line?
Y is equals to mx plus c.
No, I mean the one we calculated here, 7.4. Okay. Now I have to go back. Yeah.
It's just x is equals to x plus 5.
Oh, wait. Okay, can you repeat?
G of x is equals to x plus 5.
Is equal to x plus 5, right? Now you're looking for just the x-intercept. And for x-intercept, y must be equal to 0. So what you tell them first, you go and say x-intercept y must be equal to 0. And I think this is a mark. Hopefully in grade 11, it must be a mark. Then you're going to say 0 is equal to x plus 5. And then your x value is eventually negative 5. That is the x value at point S. So which means S is negative 5 and 0. All right, it's fine. Let's go to point U because we're looking for the um, length of SU. Then for U, hey, you're going to say f of x is equal to negative x squared plus x plus 6. Then you are looking for the x-intercept. Y must be equal to 0. So you're going to have 0 is equal to negative x squared plus x plus a 6. Right. So before you do anything, now I can advise divide both sides by a negative. Anything that is a negative, it is the problem if in your life. If when you are ever in a relationship and that person is always negative, that is a problem in your life. Just leave that thing. Okay. That is a piece of advice. You can never find that advice anyway other than from me. Okay. Then it's going to be x minus 6 is equal to 0. My learners are always complaining, why am I always talking about this? But they don't know. Then now you're factorizing. You open two brackets. And this is a quadratic. That's a quadratic. You open two brackets. Then the first bracket is occupied by this x squared, right? So you're going to have x and x. I mean, or the first thing in each bracket, x and x. Then what happens is some of you are not able to factorize a quadratic. The way you factorize a quadratic, you look the sign of the last term. The last term is negative. It is negative 6. Once it is ever negative, it means both brackets are going to have different sign. The other one will be positive, the other one will be negative, right? Then another thing that is going to happen, you look for the factors of the last term, right? So the factors of the last term, it is 6 multiplied by 1 and 3 multiplied by 2. Then in those factors, when you add or subtract them, they must give you the middle term. So if when I add them or subtract them, they must provide me a 1 or an x. So look, if I add or subtract 6 and 6, I'm either going to get 7 or I'm either going to get 5. But for 3 and 2, I'm either going to get 5 or to get 1, right? So which means the factors that qualify here, it is 3 and 2. Then the law says the bigger number takes the sign in the middle. It takes the sign in the middle. And the sign in the middle, it is negative, which means 3 is going to occupy this space. That is 3 and 2, right? And then you actually have x is equal to negative 2 or x is equal to 3, right there. I hope we are good. So which means when you can see u is on the positive x-axis. So it is actually positive 3. Coordinates of u is positive 3. So it's 3 and 0. That is u. Now you are at the end. They want the length, right? When you know if you do physical science, okay, because now I don't know whether you do physical science or you don't do physical science, but for those who do physical science, length, it actually refers to just a direction. A length will never a direction. Oh no, sorry. Length refers to a distance, right? So a distance, it only has the magnitude. It doesn't have direction. That is what a length is. Length is a distance. So it will never have A direction. By direction, I mean, if scientifically we describe positive and negative as our directions. Maybe let's say we have west and east. We say east is positive, west is negative, and so on. Then, because you are looking for the distance or the length of SU, you are not going to consider this negative, right? So what you're going to simply do, you can either do it like this, 3 plus 5, which give you 8. Or you can come and see length is equal to 3 minus into minus 5. This is what most of the teachers are going to advise you to do. Eventually, it's going to give you a length of 8. And a length, it has magnitude, so it must have a unit. So it is 8 units. 8 units. I think so far we're still good. Right. Now let's talk about 7.7. I know questions like 7.7, these are those questions whereby when you come across them in an exam or a test, you just close your eye. Some of you will say Jesus is my answer. Some of you will just move. Some of you will see the future going out of the wind. I understand. I've been there. All right. So what determine the value of x for which f of x minus g of x is less or equal to 0? 7.7. Determine the values of x for which f of x minus g of x is less or equal to 0. What can you do here? They said determine that, and it's only 2 marks. That means there's not a lot of calculation that are required, right? Because marks indicate the work that you need to do. But okay, well, now I was going to say f of x less or equal to g of x. I hope we are all on the same page. I just transposed this to the other side because there is a 0, there's nothing there. I transposed it to the other side. And now it's positive. What does this mean? This means determine the values of x whereby g of x is greater than f of x. You see, when they say where g of x is greater than f of x, they mean where g of x is above f of x. I mean, when something is greater, it must be above. When you have a big brother, he's above you in terms of age because he's older. So that's what we mean. Simple. Then let's go in our graphs. Well, in this I'm going to divide my graph in 3 points. Wherever they meet, I'm dividing. Do you know why I divide? I get they are meeting. Whenever there is a meet up, I divide. I don't want meetups. They must be mathematically focused, these graphs. They must not do that in front of me. I don't promote that. Okay, that's just a joke. Then look at this portion. Let me say this portion number 1, this portion number 2, portion number 3. Let's listen to each other clearly. What do you see here? G is a straight line, right? F of x is a parabola. Parabola is below what? Okay, let me change color. You see the straight line? It is above. G of x is below. You see? So that is where G of x is above f of x. That is the first point. But they said they want the values of x. They want the values of x. So what is the value of x in that point? Everything starts at point D. Everything starts at point D. So from point D going backwards, f of x is below g of x. Simple. Then which means this is where x is less or equal to -1. Actually, that is when your x values are less than -1. They want the x value or the values of x. Then let's analyze this again. In section 2, the second portion, g of x is below, right? It is below because the parabola, it is above like that. So which means this is where this part it fails because they want where g of x is above, not f of x. And in the second portion, f of x is above. Then let's go to the last portion. G of x is going up while f of x is going down like that. And f of x is eventually below. I hope we're still on the same page. And where does everything begin? It all begins at that point, which is point F, which is 1 and 6. And that is where O x is greater or equal to 1. From 1 going forward, G is above um f of x. G of x is above f of x. So that is just the 2 marks that they wanted to give you. There's no calculation, nothing that you needed to worry about here. So you were just supposed to be very, very smart and be creative. Be uh, be focused. Be more focused. Be more focused. All right. Then calculate the maximum length of VW. Some of you now are thinking about cars. VW. You know VW. VW. That car. I have it. Just in case if you don't know, I have a car and I'm married. All right. It's fine. So in order to find the length i- or the vertical height, let's say the vertical length. In order to find the vertical length, you say, and get our length now is VW. You're going to say y top minus y bottom. That is how you find the length. So what is y top? Y top is the graph at the top in that part. Look, VW. The graph which is at the top in this part, it is the parabola. It is at the top, right? So in the place of y, Angiti, your graph is like y is equal to negative x squared plus x plus 6, right? So in the place of y, you're going to substitute this thing because they are equal, right? So you're going to have negative x squared plus x plus 6 right there. Then minus into, you are substituting now. Y bottom? Y dot bottom is a straight line. The equation of a straight line, I think it was x plus 5, something like this. Then you work out the brackets. There you have negative x squared. X and x, they're going to cancel out. And it is x multiplied 1, negative 1 multiplied by x. So they're going to cancel out these ones. They're going to remove each other. Then negative 1 multiplied by 5 is going to be negative 5. And then 6 minus 5 is going to be plus 1. All right, going to be plus 1. Then what is going to happen here? Okay, let me remove this point. Mm, Okay, well, um, in this case, it's just unfortunate that you can never use the equation or the axis of symmetry. You can't use the equation of axis of symmetry in this case because your equation is not a quadratic. It is a difference between two squares. So if you were going to use a quadratic or the axis of symmetry, if you have something like this, if you are in a position like this is where you can find the axis of symmetry or the x value, then you substitute it on the original equation. Some of you I showed you this, but it's fine. Then what do you do in this case? Okay, now you just have to be strategical. You have to think. Now, I need this the difference between two squares, but this one value, this one, or this one value, it actually represents your y or your y value. Yes, it represents your y value there on the graph. So which means your height or your maximum length is actually this value, this one, this case. When you're in a situation like this, because remember, you can't come and say x is equal to negative b over 2a. If you look in our position, b is actually 0. We don't have a b there. So this one, it is actually the vertical length in that certain point. So in point VW, right? So that one is representing the y value or the length, in fact, in that section. So your length is actually 1 unit. This was a nice question. But okay, besides that, I want you to talk to me.